My heart is pounding today because I know that I'm going to share a very, very personal story with you today about how I hit rock bottom and how that allowed me to build a very solid foundation for truly creating a deliberate life. And today I'm really going to lay it all out there. I'm going to share with you openly and vulnerably about the hard part of recognizing that you're not where you want to be, that you really majorly messed up in some way, and how to pivot and start in the direction that you actually want to go. It's going to be an amazing episode. Stay tuned. I want to share with you the story of what happened after I had my amazing twin home birth. I'm sure many of you have read our birth story. I obviously was pregnant with twins, ended up on a search for a midwife who could help us have a home birth. It ended up being 6 days of labor. The kids were born 33 hours apart. So many earth angels came together to make that experience possible. And it was a vision quest. I became more than who I've been. I truly lived a miracle, and I felt so victorious and so radically transformed in my perspective on life, and certainly my perspective on myself. What many don't know is that almost immediately after this highlight, I hit a huge crash. I all of a sudden had 2 newborns and had to take care of them. We were living at my in-laws' house at the time, and there were some challenging circumstances that were happening in his family, and it led to a lot of tension. My husband and I were fighting like cats and dogs. I was completely sleep deprived. It was truly torture, but I would not allow anyone to give my kids formula. I had a very strict idea about what a good mother was, and breastfeeding was absolutely a part of it. And so I worked myself to the bone, and when there was a big blow up in the family, and we ended up moving out with 5-week-old twins, I hit bottom. I don't know how to describe it. I was an absolute mess. And I ended up developing a severe breast infection from nursing, mastitis. And here I was working so hard to be a good mom, to nurse these children, to give them the love that I wanted them to give. And meanwhile, feeling like I'm going into some sort of a deep black hole, and I end up in the hospital. I end up in the hospital for the first time in my life. I had a home birth, so I wasn't in a hospital then. I've never been hospitalized. And I ended up going in with such severe pain that they put me on morphine. And then they discovered that the strain of bacteria that I had in my breast milk really, was possibly resistant, some sort of very bad bacteria. And so they suggested that the kids don't come and see me. Plus I had, at that point they were 7 weeks old, the kids, and I didn't want them to come to the hospital anyway. So imagine this. I get checked in at the hospital, it's midnight or something. I call my dad. I will never forget this. I cry every time I remember. I call my dad and I tell him that I'm in the emergency room. They don't know what's wrong and I'll be there. Literally, my dad packed up his bags and his wife, and they were on the road. They didn't even tell their work. They drove all night from the Bay Area to Los Angeles and came and helped out. By the time I was in the morning seen by a doctor, all of my breast milk that I've saved had run out, literally. So the kids had to be on formula. I ended up being taken in and all these tests being done. I was pumping and dumping, still trying to maintain some sort of a flow of milk. And they tried to remove some of it with a tube. It didn't work. To make a long story short, I ended up having surgery, my first major surgery, where I had to go under. And I ended up having literally really a cubic inch hole in my breast, like a hole that I had to clean out. 4 days in the hospital thinking how the fuck I ended up here. I knew about law of attraction. I had lived this amazing birth where I felt so connected to all of life, to source, to magic, so empowered, so clear. My husband was my biggest support, and I felt this amazing life-giving energy flowing through me. And here I was 7 weeks later, worse off than I've ever been in my life, feeling like I made the biggest mistake that I possibly could have. And now I wasn't with my newborn kids. I wasn't nursing them. And I had a kind of come to Jesus moment where I realized what went wrong. And what went wrong is that during the birth, didn't do this. And after the birth, did it almost automatically. Prioritized other people over myself. I thought that you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to sacrifice yourself for your children. And that was an honorable and a good thing to do. And I know many of you listening probably think you're supposed to sacrifice yourself for your partner. You're supposed to sacrifice yourself for your business. You're supposed to sacrifice yourself. And I felt like, God, I know better. And yet here I was in this trap and realizing I can't believe how out of alignment I got trying to follow these ideals, expectations that I had placed on myself that I could not fulfill. I had to accept the very human limits that I had and say, kill me, but I can't. And it was such a tender moment of embracing myself, not just the shiny, happy, glittery parts of me, but the really dark, painful shadow parts of me, the gremlins inside. And I had to say, you're part of me too, and you're welcome here. I'm not gonna push you away and pretend that you don't exist. And that moment, it really changed my life, or that time in the hospital, because I vowed to myself to never, ever, 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 ever again prioritize anything over my well-being, because everybody suffered in the process, including me. I came out of the hospital. I had a few weeks of healing, of tending to my wound. I ended up building my milk supply back. I ended up enjoying being with my children. I started entering some sort of postpartum depression where I started hating my kids before I went to the hospital. I mean, I was completely exhausted and sleep deprived. After I came out, I said, everything's a choice now. I'm going to support myself. Ended up getting a nanny to come and help a few hours a week. Ended up enjoying my moments with these precious babies that were changing all the time. Started prioritizing time with my husband over even being with the children, recognizing that that union is the center of the hub of my life, and all of the spokes come from that. And so what I wanted to share with you today is that many times since then, this is now 5 years ago, I have had these moments where all of a sudden I realized, wow, I really fucked up. Or wow, how did I get so off course? Or wow, I had no idea that I felt this way because I wasn't willing to be honest with myself, or I wasn't willing to share it with others. And then getting into a crisis situation and saying, okay, the buck stops here. Something's got to shift. And what that has allowed me to do each time is to go through a process of deep self-love and forgiveness, and then to recognize that this is giving me an opportunity to start anew, to wipe the slate clean and to build a more solid foundation. And upon this foundation, I can build anything that I want that is more resonant with who I am. So this experience in the hospital has allowed me to create a more self-loving interaction with my partner, more intimate, more passionate, more amazing connection with him, more freedom in my business, more success on my own terms, definitely a more amazing and not needy, more free relationship with my children. And so it's been a foundation, it's been a gift that keeps giving, but it came in a very painful package. So I want to let you know that if you're experiencing a major crisis right now, or if you remember experiencing something that felt like the end of the world and was the worst thing that you could imagine, I want you to think about that instance or that circumstance as life giving you a wipe your slate clean opportunity. Should you take it, you can literally recreate yourself as the version that is much more you, much more aligned, much more fulfilled. But it's gonna take that trial and tribulation, right? Diamonds are created through pressure. So welcoming pressure as a part of life. So what I'd love to leave you with and to hear your responses on are, have you ever faced an amazing, crazy, intense crisis where you felt like you're never gonna survive it? Maybe it's a death of someone you loved. Maybe it's the, I don't know, end of an era in your life, end of a relationship. Maybe it's something else that has really moved you forward, even though at the time it seemed like the worst thing. And the reason I want you to reflect on this and to start a conversation around this is because tragedies are gonna keep happening in our lives. Contrast is gonna keep happening. We're going to keep discovering that there are parts of us that we don't like that are going to show up and sabotage or mess things up or whatever you want to call it. And how we deal with it is what's going to determine the quality of our life and certainly the success that we experience, not the actual circumstances. So I'd love to know how you take these tombstones and turn them into stepping stones, and how that served you in your life. Because I feel so passionate about this topic, and I've developed over the years as a life coach and speaker and the creator of the Get Full of Yourself membership, lots of techniques and tools to go deeper within yourself, so that this process of transformation happens to be a little bit more pulled by vision instead of pushed by pain. I described to you what it's like to be pushed by pain. It is a little smoother to be pulled by vision. So I'm putting together an amazing 2-hour masterclass called Embrace Your Gremlins and Glitter. So embracing all those parts of you, wiping the slate clean so that you could build that steady foundation. I would love for you to attend. We're gonna go deep, and it is certainly going to transform your perspective and your life. And I'm going to be making a really special big announcement, something that happened to me a few months ago that has really changed the way I look at life, and I've been sort of waiting for a great time to share it. And so I'll be making this announcement. I hope you will join the masterclass and become more masterful at creating a life that really, really pleases you and brings you immense joy. Many, many blessings.